In this unit, we're looking at simple interest and compound interest. Now, we will begin by looking first at simple interest. Okay, so essentially, there will be a lot of financial terms in this unit, but let's get the basics, right? So, money that you leave in the bank or that you invest earns interest. Okay, I suggest that if you have to pause the video to take notes, all right? Okay, so money that you invest, that you leave in the bank or that you invest earns interest. And there are two types of interest: simple interest and compound interest. Okay? Now, right now we're going to start looking at simple interest because it's a lot simpler, right? And although compound interest is by far the more common way to earn interest, we are going to examine simple interest first, as it will help us understand the more complicated compound interest, right? And if you want to get a graphical sense of what these two look like, so graphically, we can say that simple interest normally tends to have a linear relation. So you can basically say, right, let's say you had a graph here and you have simple interest. So let's say this is 5 and this is 10 years, right? And let's say this is how much money you make. So let's say you do an investment, I don't know, it could be $1,000, $5,000, whatever it is, right? Over time, your money will grow, right? So over 10 years, your money will grow, whatever it is that you start with here, right? By the way, this is supposed to be a dollar sign, okay? And so this will be a graphical representation of simple interest. But when we have compound interest, and you'll see why is it that we say that it is far more common. It's because the following, let's say same thing, 5 and another 10 years here, and let's put the dollar sign here. Now, what happens with compound interest? Well, that over time you may start investing here, but over time it begins to increase rapidly, right? Okay, so if we were to transpose these two graphs, right, you will see that compound interest will start lower at first, but then in the long run you will be earning more money, right? If you compare this point to that point there at the same time, this point at 10 years is a lot higher. In any case, this is an example of compound interest. Okay, just for you guys to get a sense. Now, this is what we normally refer to as a linear relation. It has a linear growth, and this is an exponential relation, right? But that's beyond the topics that I want to address in this unit. So now, let's dive into simple interest first, right? And the first thing to remember is the following. I'm looking for a page here to try to cover up, and I'll show you everything, right? So simple interest that is calculated using this formula. So here's the formula for simple interest. I equals PRT, where I is the interest earned. Okay, so this is the formula for simple interest, right? We calculate using these formulas. Well, this formula, I equals P times R times T, where I is the interest earned, P is the amount invested or the amount saved. In other words, is the initial amount. So for example, if you want to invest $1,000 and you want to make it grow over time, well, that's your initial investment. P is the initial amount or the initial investment. R is the annual interest rate, and it has to be expressed as a decimal. And we'll see more examples about that. And T is the time invested in years. So we have to make sure that when they give us time, it will be in years. Okay, so now let's just, this is simple interest formula. Okay, and we'll see how we would use this formula. So once we calculate the interest earned, once you have calculated the amount of interest earned, let's underline this, you simply add this to the principal to the initial amount to get the final amount. Okay, so let's underline these key words, key terms that we need to get familiar with. And of course, once we get the interest earned, you simply add this to the principal to get the final amount, and that formula is this. We add the interest earned to the principal, to the initial amount, in order to get the final amount. So where A is the final amount, let's underline this. That is the amount that you now have in the bank after you invested it for a number of years. Okay? So these two formulas that I'm putting in a box, this one over here, and I don't know if I can fit them both on the same screen. These are the two formulas that we're going to be using for calculating simple interest. So let's take a look at some examples.